2025 has already dropped a crazy amount of fantastic games, and this game we're going to talk about in this review is not only an instant classic, but one of the best games I have ever played. Let's talk about Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a game that has a ton of different themes in it. There are themes around love, there are themes around loss, there are themes around, what is it like to be in a space where you are the only ones that can save the world? What is it like to be able to go up against just foes that are much bigger than you and stronger than you, and trying to find ways to carry on the mission that your brethren and sisterin have failed to do before you. And it does so in such a just spectacular and fantastic way. Every level of this game, every piece of it, every moment, every crumb of just fantasticness is just everywhere that you can see within this title. The team from Sandfall Interactive this is the strongest showing from a rookie team, or at least not actually rookie, but from their first debut of a game that I've ever seen. I mean, from the art style to the music style to the combat, everything is at a quadruple A level in a way that I did not expect. I was very excited for this game after seeing the initial, trailers that we got the chance to see at the Game Awards, and getting the first kind of whiff of what this game was, and then getting to see things in preview a little bit later on in the years, really had me excited for what this game was going to wind up being. But I was thrown for a loop by what I got to actually get a chance to play. So you start off as these two characters in Gustav and Mael, who are, a part of this crew called the Expedition Crew. There have been many crews before you, and your task is to take down this entity called the Paintress.
It's been 67 years since the world broke apart. 67 years since Lumiere was flung into the sea. 67 years since she appeared and painted her first number. Expedition after expedition have tried to stop her. Idealists, fighting for the future of Lumiere. Academics, obsessed with the secrets of the monolith. And those poor souls who just want their deaths to mean something. None have ever returned. And neither will I. But at least I'll have seen something of this world.
Every year she's painting these numbers on this monolith and basically rapturing everyone who is of that age. And people don't know what to do with it. They have no idea how to combat it. They have sent off many teams over many years, almost 67 years since the first initial signing of the Paintress. And each one of those teams has a story. Each one of those teams has a meaning. And one of those teams that you are on is Expedition 33, who is going for their turn to try to take down the Paintress. It is a ridiculously cool game. I think every moment that I got a chance to spend with this over the 30 hours that I spent with it, 30 plus hours, because, I finished the game at 30, but there's at least another 30 plus hours you could spend within this game. And every time that I would boot it up, I would think of, oh my goodness, what kind of fight am I going to get into? What kind of battle am I going to see? What new wild take on art and wild take on setting are they going to go into? And each and every moment just felt distinct and very just like, you can see the painstaking just like challenge to make everything feel so beautiful and stunning. It is a masterpiece of art. It is a masterpiece of music. Gameplay wise, it is just a gorgeous and fun time that mixes up a bunch of different styles that feel really fun and interesting and challenging, which is one of the things that I was worried about. I have to say, this game so far, this will stick with me for a very long time. And I think for games that are coming after it, they are going to have a hard time beating whatever the secret sauce was that made this game possible and put this game in our hands. I'm dumbfounded every time I get a chance to talk about it, and have been dying to find people to discuss this game, and to think this will be a game that people will talk about for a long time, not only for what this team was able to pull off, but for how each layer kind of comes together. I think, games are very disparate sometimes in the ways that they piece together all the parts that make a game, but this feels very cohesive. It feels extremely smartly done. It feels like the ideas that they were trying to pull together to make this game possible were very well thought out, and just the execution is top notch in a way that, again, for a team in their debut game, you don't expect. You don't think a game that is made by 30 people can be this good, but this game is that good in so many different ways. Characters in this game are really well done. I think each one has their own motivations. They have their own understandings of the world. They have their own backstories and lore and history. And I think, one of the kind of main gameplay loops is you building relationships with each one of these characters.
68. Elodie's expedition.
You know the commanders of every expedition.
Expedition 68. Their boat was blown into the air by a storm. Lumiere lost sight of it, but assumed they crashed on the continent.
And they survived. A storm, at least.
All right, let's keep moving. We found the weird corals. Mael must be close by.
Each one of them, you'll go to the camp. It is a kind of, I would say, hub world where you're not only upgrading your character, upgrading your weapons, upgrading your Pictos, which are basically like if you were to have a stat modifier for either a part of your kit, or some part of a spell that you did, or something for your health, or another addition to what you are able to kind of bring into a battle. Those are really cool to kind of play around with. But each of those stories, based on what those history layers are for you, will just add to the overall story, and it did for me as well. It really did give me a space to connect with each one of the characters that are in the game, and because you're swapping them in and out on a consistent basis, you're really thinking a lot about which one of these characters and their skill sets are going to be really good for either kind of being a main partner in your group. One of the characters is kind of more of a healer. Other ones are really like glass cannons. You have a lot of different, options for how you bring them in. But while you build those relationships at camp, you then get a chance to explore not only discussions with them and learn more about them, but you also get a chance to level up your relationship with them, which then adds some layers a little bit later in the game that you'll find out when you get a chance to play that are really important, not only for the overall lore and kind of story beats, but how you actually interact with them and why you would want to bring them into your party. It's really well done. I think they get fleshed out extremely well over the 30 hours that you're there, and it makes you want to kind of go back and talk to them and figure out good ways. And the banter is really smart. Like it's not just like rote conversations that you would have in a game where you have a party. You're finding out actual things about them and building some good relationships there. So bravo to the team for that, because it was really, really cool to see how those characters got fleshed out. Combat in Expedition 33 is really good. Like, I think one of the things I kept coming back to was the balance of free battle and turn-based RPG kind of mechanics worked supremely well. I think it does something really, really interesting where you are walking in this overworld sometimes, and sometimes, when you have the, usual JRPG versions of, if you walk over here and you just run into a random battle, you have some of that, but you don't really have random battles. You can see on the overworld where enemies are, and you can actually get an advantage if you hit your kind of attack button early and get a first strike when you wind up moving from the overworld screen to the actual battle screen. The turn-based layers are smart. You get a chance to not only strategize the way you want to take on a fight, but you're seeing things that you can take advantage of, that there are hit points or there are like weak spots on some enemies that you can see. Some of them are kind of glowy bits, so you can really tell from a distance and say, if I use my free aim right here and hit them, I might be able to get an advantage. And a lot of times that initial strike that you get that will break a character's, weak spot gives you enough of a advantage to be able to take on a fight and have a really good time with it. I think what winds up happening is often that balance between the kind of almost QTE levels that are timed based. So you'll get basically a marker on the screen that tells you when to hit a button, and you'll get a window within that if you hit, you'll get an even bigger amount of damage, or you'll get, additional hits on an enemy. And those aren't necessarily easy to hit. Depends on a lot of what your moves are, what kind of spells you're casting, what pieces of your gear and kit are you using at that time. And there are different layers of it that are elemental damages, and some of those things will get either absorbed or blocked from enemies if they don't necessarily have weaknesses to those things. But when they do, you have a huge advantage, and you get a much bigger, damage boost on those specific attacks or spells or movements. It's cool because what happens is in a battle, you're doing this back and forth a kind of maneuver where you're taking those turns and you're rolling through your roster, and you're saying, oh, okay, this character might have been using a weapon that had an elemental, addition to it that wasn't working. Maybe I can't swap them out now, but what I can do is use their free aim to be able to poke down some of the enemies that I see in front of me, and then letting my other teammates kind of take the rest of the damage off of those enemies for me. It's a lot of balance. It's a lot of balance between specials and kind of these kind of uber skills, almost like summons that you would see in something like a Final Fantasy, but they are very much grounded in each one of those characters. Like, you can see that some of those who are spellcasters have a different level of ways that they can attack the field. Folks who have weapons have a whole other way that they can do. You have some characters that can turn into other characters that you might have been fighting throughout the time that you've been playing. Each one of the ways that you kind of tackle a fight changes in between. Not only, is that character on the ground, or is that character flying in the air, kind of hovering? Are you low on health? Can you resurrect yourself? Can you have another character resurrect you to be able to stay into a fight? And if you do, are there any additional, additive bonuses to that when you wind up getting into, that state? It's a constant push and pull between the strategy of understanding your team and understanding, after you get a couple of reps in terms of fighting characters, what are their patterns, what are the kind of movesets that they have. And sometimes, and specifically most times, once you've gotten an enemy into a certain state, they change up the way they fight. They might add some extra moves to their own tool set, and they may actually kind of change the way that they fight. And it throws you off, because if you're trying to block or parry, which are two systems that are extremely necessary in able to kind of learn how to play this game, it winds up feeling like a rhythm game in so many different ways, where you're not only kind of doing the back and forth, but you're also waiting for the next character to kind of do their move, or the enemy to do theirs, so you can block it and have a repost move and kind of turn the battle back against them. It is brilliant. I think it is extremely well done. I had a ton of fun, and the thing that I was worried about was, like, again, is this going to be challenging enough for me? I think games like this, especially if you have any real eye-hand coordination, isn't that hard. But I spent a lot of time on some enemies that sometimes were either a little bit too strong for my current level, or their patterns were just really hard to grok. It was hard to kind of just like, all right, so you hit me twice here, and that other move that I was expecting to come was delayed by like just half a second longer, or was faster by like another half a second. And it changes the way you wind up having to take on those fights, and how do you kind of balance out, the way that you're blocking and parrying and thinking about what your next move is going to wind up being. Sometimes taking a hit is even smarter than just like trying to parry everything, or just dodging out of the way will give you some abilities to do more damage, or build up your AP points, which is a big part of the progression of your gameplay, and progression of how many moves are you able to do that are based upon how many hit points or AP points you're using per move, and per spell, to give you just the right balance of what you're doing in a fight. I came out of that thing feeling beat up some days, and it was good. It was a good feeling of getting beat up, because you're constantly learning. You're constantly trying to figure out all of the different like minute details of where the game is trying to give you hints about where you should block or how you should parry, or you wind up changing the way you look at enemies, not only from their animations, but even the visual effects that are surrounding them. Like, you have to play this game with headphones. You have to play this game with something that is really going to pull the audio through, because the audio details and kind of warnings that you get from the enemy attacks are often more audible than they are visual. And getting a chance to understand the visual kind of, markers that you're seeing and the visual tells that you're hearing and the audible tells that you're getting makes those battles even harder sometimes, because you're trying to figure out, like, all right, I heard that thing, but when that happens, that means that move is about to come out. Because sometimes the moves are really sneaky. They come out of nowhere. They're faster than you expect. But once you, again, learn those patterns, you wind up having that moment, with that aha moment, where you're like, oh, when I see this spear hit this part of the screen, I know I should be dodging or parrying here. When I see, this laser beam sound about to come out, I know I should be dodging here. It winds up being this really fun dance on the battlefield of using all your senses to really get the best, ability to go through a fight and work your way through it. Again, the team did a really good job on this stuff. I think, games like this come across once in a while, and when you see that kind of attention to detail, you have to give them massive props for what it can be and what it winds up being. And it becomes something where, at a moment you feel like you're in the Matrix. You feel like, oh, okay, I am feeling all of the pattern building here. I'm feeling all of the again, my senses being touched upon it, and understanding when I should be doing certain things. And you wind up giving yourself a lot of respect, because you're like, oh man, I really understood or found out or learned what I was supposed to get through some of these fights. And the bosses and the enemies are varied. You have stuff that is just like, man, like late game stuff is so good. And even the stuff that's a little bit earlier on, it just shows you the coolness of art design and character design and enemy design, because everything feels very, very different, especially when you wind up going into, some of the mid to later levels. Like, they ramp up, what those things are going to look like in so many different ways, and it feels really fantastic. So, combat in this game is brilliant. It is the main part of what you'll be doing for most of the time that you're in the game. And even outside of that, there are just really small fun things that this game does, in terms of, you have vendors in the world that will give you not only, materials and items, but sometimes weapons. And if there's some of the enemies you are actually able to fight. So if there's an NPC that is a merchant, they'll have an option that's like, do you want to fight the merchant? And when you fight the merchant, you're able to either get a new cosmetic or potentially a weapon or some of those things. And the game, it just doesn't take itself super seriously in those moments, while also being extremely dark and extremely, reverent in what it's trying to do when it's having a conversation about the end of their world and how they are coming to, understanding who they are in the space. It's a really good mix of play and story that are all wrapped up in what winds up being really, really fantastic combat. So to end out on my review of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, reviews like this are hard, only just because I could talk about this thing for hours. Like, I keep thinking about being excited for all of you to check this game out when it drops a couple days from now, and knowing that you are going to have just one of the best experiences of the year, and probably of the past couple of years. If you are a fan of video games, if you're a fan of art, if you're a fan of beautiful music and beautiful, just like, experiences, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is probably one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like, it from, again, visuals to music to really fun boss battles that just like envelop the screen, small details that are around every corner. And this game wants you to explore it. It wants you to dig around every corner. It wants you to look around the overworld map is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And then when you kind of move down to that kind of smaller space, where you see the characters moving. It feels almost like those tilt shift videos or tilt shift pictures, where everything is kind of blurred out and obscured, but you have a really fine focus on you and what you're doing in the world. It just feels like a love letter to video games in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. And that doesn't even speak to, you know, all the other small bits of just like how tight the combat feels, and, you know, you balancing that out between the characters that you have and the skills that you wind up, you know, gathering and accumulating over your time playing it. And then, you know, the surprises that you wind up seeing that you didn't expect. This game is just so good. Like, I've played so many games over my 13 years of doing, you know, content creation and 11 years of doing Spawn on Me. And it is very rare to have games stay with you in the way that this did. You know, the themes that are in here, the musical themes are stuck in my head. I can't not think about them. They are haunting. They are stunning. They are beautiful. They are like glorious in the way that they kind of pull all those things together. And I try not to blow smoke about games that I think are really good, but like, this thing is just so good. Like, I've seen people, you know, I'm recording this the day that the Oblivion remaster got talked about, and people are already on social talking about, you know, all the Clair Obscur people got to worry. Nah, the other people have to worry. Like, everybody else has been put on notice by Sandfall Interactive, and I am dying to talk to that team. I want to speak to them, and, you know, I got a chance to meet a couple of those folks, you know, at an event. And they're all super humble, like super chill. I'd be beating my chest like you would not believe if I put a game out like this. And I knew that this was going to be the game that we were going to put out for our first kind of larger endeavor. Man, this game is good. This thing is just unreasonably dope. And I feel very lucky to have played it before most folks have gotten a chance to play it. And I feel very lucky to be able to now be able to be like, I beat that thing and can go back to it and go play more of it because I still have stuff to do in the world. This is a game that you cannot miss. If you are on the fence about what this game is, get off of it. Get off the fence. Go cop it whatever way you need to. I forgot if it's on Game Pass, but it might be on Game Pass. I think it is. If you're in Game Pass, oh my God, you just got one of the best games of all time to be able to go play whenever you want. Man, I am blown away by everything that this game has to offer, and I think that you will be too. So I hope you had a good time checking out me blathering about this dope game, and I hope that you will find time in your backlog, in your future log, to be able to find time to play through this and enjoy it and slow play it. Because it's a beefy game. It's 30 hours. It took me 30 plus hours to beat the campaign, and that's because of, you know, exploring and losing a lot in battles and having to redo them and stuff like that. There is one small thing that I forgot that is a small nitpick about what this game does. Usually when you're having a boss battle or you're having a big battle and you die, usually the kind of you know, these flags are in the space where you can save and upgrade your character and do those things. They wind up being respawn points as well. Sometimes when you're in a boss battle, you will have this cutscene that will happen right before it. Right now, currently in the build that I have, or the one that I've been playing for review, you can skip those things, but you have to play them first. It doesn't give you the ability to go directly from, you know, you being dead to going right directly into the fight. You wind up having to play that cutscene, and depending upon how far it was where you last saved or the last flag that you kind of touched, that can be a trek to get back to that fight, and you have to continuously kind of hit the button, skip it, and then go into the fight. What winds up happening with that is, because so many of these fights are basically rhythm based, you wind up losing your momentum. You wind up losing the rhythm of, okay, I know what those hits were going to be in that moment. You know, I can't like keep my senses. I can't not think about what's supposed to happen here. I need to remember where I'm supposed to be in those fights. And you wind up having to go back through that entire part all over again. And that's just, you know, a not fun part of those moments when you have to, again, get back into the momentum of a fight, especially a big fight. Some that have multiple layers and some that have multiple stages. So that's the one kind of big nitpick in that conversation. But for the most part, this is a phenomenal 10 out of, this is a 20 out of 10 game. You know, that's very rare to say, but it is that good. So I just wanted to leave you with that because I almost forgot to tell you about that part. But this game is really good. Go get this thing. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is definitely a game you need to have in your library, and I cannot wait to talk to all of you about your experiences once you've played it. Thank you again for coming and hanging out with me here on Spawn on Me. Thank you so much for checking out the review. Please go make sure you hit the subscribe button, like button, so the algorithm can love on us and give us some props. And we'll see you all soon in the next one. Much love to you all. Peace.